What is going on, guys? This is Miasin. So I wanted to make a top 10 best budget decks of the format, but at the same time I didn't want to only talk about 10 decks, and I didn't really want to make a tier list because I've made too many tier lists recently, even though that's not really true. I only make like once a month on an average, actually. Well, the average might be even lower because I only started making them as of recently. But yeah, I'm just basically going to be covering a bunch of decks here and also give you guys my insight and my recommendations on whether or not these decks might be good investments on the future, and also just how good they are against the competitive field at the moment, because you can get some really nice pickups here for like maybe less than $100 and win some locals undefeated pretty convincingly, honestly. Anyways, before this video goes any further, I would really appreciate you if you could smash the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much, it really means the world to me. Again, I'm still completely dead. Jesus, it's like I'm sick and my head is like dying, so yeah, hopefully things will go much better shortly. But anyways, the first deck is Raptor. It's a really good deck, and it also got indirect support recently in Phantom Nightmare because of Swallow Scoury. And to be fair, the most recent wave of support in Phantom Nightmare was for Raptor, and then on top of that we got a TCG exclusive. Swallow Scoury just boost every winged beast out there, so honestly, even Blackwing is a decent budget deck. Nobody's really trying to play this deck at the current moment, other than like Kanak and his gang. But yeah, it's a cool deck for sure. And again, just like Kanak is a Blackwing enthusiast, I'm also a Raptor enthusiast myself. I have a lot of positive things to say about this deck. It's a real legitimate threat. And if people are playing board breakers over hand traps, then you're gonna rejoice over that because your deck does not lose to board breakers whatsoever. And the only hand traps it really folds to, I guess I want to say, would be Valor and Imperm. But if you have watched my most recent video, you would know that Raptor doesn't really care all that much about it. Or rather, about those two hand traps. But anyways, a very nice pick. And it keeps getting some form of hype from other YouTubers, like Joshua Schmidt and Jesse. I believe they talked about Raptor, but they don't know as much about the deck as I have because they didn't really work on the deck themselves. But, you know, it's a nice investment, like I said, because I have spent a few dozens of hours on it. And I know the pros and cons, and again, it's a very consistent deck. The ceiling level is off the charts, but it's just a matter of time before it will be its format. So if you want to pick up the deck, pick it up now before it becomes too late. Blackwing, probably the same argument. FLunder is another deck that benefited off of Swallow Scoury. This deck is, I think, very cheap now. Shifter is worth nothing. Prosperity used to be the most expensive card, if I recall correctly, and that card got reprinted, so who cares? The extra deck is irrelevant, so you're basically only playing a 40-card main deck. Just nothing really seems to be super expensive. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Ryza or Empen. I forgot. Maybe there's like one card that might be worth something. But for the most part, I really don't think FLunder is worth that much money. But I do not recommend playing this deck because otherwise we're not going to be friends. I do not like FLunder. Next up is Goblin Biker. This core is worth nothing because everybody keeps pulling the Goblin Bikers. They keep considering them like trash and just awful cards. Nobody's trying to play that deck again. So if you want to get your hands on a rank 3 deck that feels just like a much more modern version of Burning Abyss, this deck is probably good for you. It's pretty much like the closest thing there is to like Gold Pride Punk. Again, so if you just like comboing off and you don't really like the fire decks, this might be the best alternative. Also got some new wave of support with the Speedroad engine. The Speedroad Terratop going to 2. Which means that you got like 2 Terratop, 1 Takatomborg, and that is a 1-card rank 3, which is pretty much full combo, which is pretty insane. Magic Spectre is another deck that got recent support in Phantom Nightmare, a very good deck. 1 card can lead to a lot, but the thing is, like, the deck doesn't really feel too real sometimes going second because it's a Pendulum deck. Same thing with like Draco Slayer and stuff. If you hand trap your opponent and then your opponent makes a Flamberge and then places your hand trap in one of the Pendulum scales, then you can't Pendulum summon anymore. So you gotta be careful about that, and you get rewarded for really understanding the field, but if you don't, then you're gonna lose, and you also lose to Anti-Spell. But the good news is, some people might be on Summon Limit over Anti-Spell, and you can thrive off of that because Pendulum decks don't really lose too hard to Summon Limit, because Summon Limit counts the amount of times you're summoning, not the amount of monsters you're summoning. So if you Pendulum summon, you can summon like 5 monsters in one shot, and that's only gonna count as 1 summon. So yeah, you can still spam the board under Summon Limit. Pendulum decks are just overall pretty decent at doing so. I'm definitely gonna have to say that the Rune Engine is an extremely good and cheap engine at the moment. It's not worth that much money, and it's just gonna get better and better over time. I think if you don't have the engine and you want it for the future, right now is the perfect moment because once we get Ice Barrier, then the Runic Engine will explode because Runic Ice Barrier is a real threat. You can draw 7 cards very consistently, You draw 4 because you got the Croco Dragon and the Coral Dragon, that's all together are drawing 4. And then Runic Fountain is pretty much always going to be drawing 3 cards, because you're drawing so much, and you're also making Herald of Arclight, so you're not losing to Valor and Jolan Logbird, and you can negate Nibiru very easily in that deck. So yeah, it's going to be like a Joshua Schmidt style kind of deck, but it's really nice. I really recommend it. And also the Earthbound engine is really cool, not only in the Runic deck, but also generically. I mean, there's a lot of decks that can play the Stone Sweeper. Resonator is one of them. And Resonator is a very good investment because it is getting some new support in the form of Red Lotus King Flame Crime. I believe this should be in Battles of Legend, Terminal Revenge. Can't confirm for sure, but the odds are very high. Now, next up is Purely. I'm not 100% sure just how expensive the deck is, but I don't think it's worth that much money because it got, like, murdered. I mean, not really, but, like, it kind of got hit a little in the last ban list. But what really murdered Purely was the existence of, Kurikawa being able to be searched off of Snake Eye Ash, just threatening your Expurely Noir. But if people are cutting Kurikawa from their side deck because it only really counters Purely and nothing else, then you can, again, benefit off of that. And Purely is a deck that can easily play Dimensional Fissure, which is one of the most ridiculous floodgates in the game. Same thing about Flunderies. They can also play Dimension Fissure. And Shifter, if you really want to in Purely. So yeah, really scary deck. Sprite can also do that, so yeah, keep that in mind. Alright, next up is really interesting. You would not expect Rescue Ace to be in my budget section, but the reason why I'm talking about Rescue Ace as a budget deck is because there is a world in which you can play without Diabellstar, Wanted, or Poplar, only in this format, and that would be by using Lullaby of Obedience, and then call Diabellstar or Poplar to steal your opponent's monster, and then whether he adds it to your hand or special summons it to your field doesn't matter, you're always a winner, and then you get you got like your engine started off of your opponent's card. So in a tier 0 format, Lullaby of Obedience can be like the budget alternative of, Wanted and super expensive cards. So even if you don't play a single Diabellstar, a single Poplar, you can just play 3 Lullaby with the original Sinful Spell Snake Eye and the regular Rescue Ace package, and you should be 100% fine. So I actually think, if anything, Rescue Ace is definitely a very respectable option because, again, when you get to pop off with Turbulence, you're still playing a very real deck. It's definitely no joke if you get to set 4 cards and still have a bunch of cards in your hand, and again, you should own the staples at this point. Next up is Ubel, and this deck is extremely scary. I'm mentioning Ubel for a bunch of reasons. First of all, I think it's decent in the current format. It's not insane, but it can still put up the Unchained board. Speaking of Unchained, another decent deck, but not insane. I think Ubel is the superior Unchained deck, the superior Fiend deck overall in general. This deck is getting insane support in Legacy of Destruction, and you do not want to be late to the party. You want to pick up Ubel before it gets hot, and right now I think is the perfect timing. We have seen Ubel being played in a feature match in YCS 3v3 Las Vegas. Oscar Renderos, I believe, played Ubel, and it just looks really cool. It's a deck that actually has a lot of competitive, very good matchups. For example, against Silent Forcer, the Voices Voice deck, the Ubel Ubel is just insane against them because their Skull Guardian has 4100 attack. It can omni-negate something, but all of your threats are continuous effects. You're not really activating anything, so you can keep crashing your Ubels. You're never gonna die. You don't take any battle damage, but your opponent takes all the damage, and you can just attack with 2 Ubels, and that's already 8200 damage reflected on your opponent. And you really don't care about the barrier preventing the monsters from being targeted, or only redirecting the attacks to the rituals. If anything, that's exactly what you want. So Ubel actually has a very, very good matchup against the best non-fire deck in the current metagame, and that could definitely play in your favor. But again, next format, it's going to be an absolute threat because of the field spell, as well as the Infernal Grave Squirmer. So that's the reason why I say if you want to pick up Ubel now, you should, because it is a great investment and definitely will be a deck that even YCS champion level players will want to pilot, or at least understand how to beat. So yeah, there's a lot of room for outplaying with this deck. Next up is Sword Soul, but there's really nothing much to cover. This deck is very simple, very clean, very linear. It always does the same thing. And, there's nothing insanely positive to say about it, but also nothing negative to say about it. So I'm a big fan. Nobody plays D-Berry either. If you're new to the game and you just want to pick up a deck, Sword Soul is always my #1 recommendation. You will learn a lot about the intricacies and mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh! Just playing Sword Soul. You learn about navigating through hand shops, everything. Honestly, everything. I think Sword Soul is a really good pick. Despia is up next. I don't think this deck is expensive. The extra deck might be... not even, honestly. Not even the extra deck I don't think is expensive either. The most expensive card that you might be playing would be Triple Tactic Thrust, but you can easily live without it. So I think you should be fine there. And finally, we have a tie between Virtual World and Tearlaments. These two decks are pretty much in the same boat because they're all trying to do the same thing, which is abuse the transaction rollback to copy either Ghost Meets Girl, a Masterful, Mayakashi, Shiranui Saga, there we go, I nailed it, or Eradicator Epidemic Virus. So, you know, you just copy one of these cards, and then you extend the handshake to your opponent, and you say, that was really fun, even though you didn't play the game, GG, well played. But yeah, these two decks, I mean, I guess I want to say Tearlaments might be the better one, but Virtual World can play hand traps, but it's a very fragile deck, and going second might not be super optimal. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my top 10, top 15, top 20 best budget decks. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think you would recommend a new player or a player on a budget to play this format? I really want to hear your thoughts. Again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Peace.